Welcome to today's Deep Dive. I'm your host, and I'm here with our resident expert to unpack a really fascinating YouTube video by Dr. Michael Kent.
Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to be here because, well, the topic we're covering today affects millions of people.
It really does. So, imagine you're walking around right now using, I don't know, a clunky 2005 flip phone as your primary device.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
Right. I mean, it drops calls, there's no internet, and frankly, it just makes your day-to-day life a lot harder.
Yeah, definitely.
And meanwhile, there are these sleek modern smartphones sitting right there in the store. You'd upgrade immediately, right?
I certainly hope so.
Well, our mission today is to figure out why so many people are using essentially the medical equivalent of that flip phone.
Right.
Talking about beta blockers, which is an incredibly common medication for high blood pressure.
It is. But to be clear right out of the gate, if you've had a heart attack or if you have heart failure, beta blockers are still absolute lifesavers.
Of course, yeah. That's an important distinction.
But for everyday, uncomplicated high blood pressure, they are essentially outdated tech. And to understand why we're still using them, we really have to look back at a massive study from 2005 called the Ascot trial.
Okay, the Ascot trial. What did they find?
So it was published in The Lancet, and it followed about 19,000 patients. And researchers actually had to stop the trial early.
Wait, really? They stopped it early?
Yeah, they discovered that patients taking a beta blocker called atenolol had significantly more strokes and a higher overall mortality rate compared to those taking newer medications.
Hold on. If a massive Lancet study in 2005 showed higher mortality, I'm assuming the medical guidelines were immediately updated, right?
Well, the official rule books did change. Following that data, the UK's NICE guidelines moved beta blockers completely off the first-line recommendation.
Okay, that makes sense.
They dropped them all the way down to a fourth-line option. But this is where we run into a really massive issue called medical inertia.
Medical inertia. Why would a doctor today actively choose to prescribe a drug with a higher stroke risk?
Because beta blockers have been the default since the 1960s. I mean, they're cheap, they're off patent, and prescribing them is just deeply embedded in how generations of doctors were trained.
Oh, wow. So it just takes decades to change those habits.
It really does. It's tough to break that cycle.
But it's not just that doctors are missing the long-term mortality risks, right? They're also missing the day-to-day misery these drugs cause.
Absolutely. The side effects are subtle but constant.
Let's look at how they actually work. So beta blockers operate by blocking adrenaline receptors in your heart. I think of it like putting a speed governor on a golf cart engine.
That is a great analogy.
Right. It successfully slows you down, which lowers the blood pressure, but it makes going uphill, like trying to exercise, incredibly difficult.
Yeah, because your heart rate has this artificial ceiling.
Exactly. You try to push, but the engine just won't give you the power.
Right, and so you feel this creeping fatigue. But a doctor just looks at a good blood pressure reading on paper and assumes everything is perfectly fine.
Which is so frustrating.
It is, and that artificial ceiling is just the beginning. A major meta-analysis highlighted in the video showed a 22% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes on beta blockers.
22%. That is huge.
It is. Because these drugs suppress insulin release from your pancreas, they just completely mess with your blood sugar.
And the really insidious part is how they hide that damage.
Right, it's precisely. When your blood sugar drops, your body's natural alarm system is to release adrenaline.
Okay, which causes the shakes and a racing heart.
Exactly, so you know to eat something immediately. But because beta blockers literally block adrenaline, they silence that alarm system entirely.
Wow. So you're essentially fixing the blood pressure number on a chart, but actively breaking the patient's metabolism behind the scenes.
That is exactly what's happening. And, the risks compound as we age. If you are over 70, beta blockers create a severe fall risk.
Because of the dizziness?
Yeah. Normally, when you stand up, your sympathetic nervous system shoots adrenaline to constrict your blood vessels and push blood up to your brain.
Okay, making sure you don't pass out.
Right. But beta blockers block that signal, so gravity wins, the blood pools in your legs, and you get orthostatic hypertension, which is that sudden, intense dizziness.
And for an older adult, that dizzy spell can easily lead to a hip fracture,
which carries severe long-term mortality risks.
So knowing all this, if you go check your medicine cabinet right now and find a beta blocker, like metoprolol or atenolol, what is the actual next step?
This is the most crucial takeaway from Dr. Kent's video. Never, ever stop taking a beta blocker abruptly.
Never.
Never. Doing so can cause your blood pressure and heart rate to spike dangerously, potentially triggering a heart attack.
Oh my gosh, that's terrifying.
Yeah. Transitioning off requires a 4 to 8 week taper, strictly supervised by your doctor.
Right, so this is about having an informed conversation, especially because we have modern alternatives now, like calcium channel blockers.
Exactly. Drugs like amlodipine work entirely differently. They relax the muscular walls of your blood vessels directly, giving the blood more room to flow.
Without putting that artificial governor on your heart rate.
Exactly. Your exercise ceiling stays intact, so your action plan is to start tracking your own data.
Right, like log your daily energy levels, note any dizziness when you stand.
And then explicitly ask your doctor for a formal medication review.
It really makes you wonder, though.
What's that?
If medical inertia kept beta blockers as the default for 20 years, despite clear evidence, what other everyday prescriptions in your medicine cabinet are coasting on decades-old habits rather than current science?
It's a scary thought.
Are you unknowingly holding on to another slip phone? Definitely something to think about.